Agencies that are doing business the way they did it in 2020 will not survive. Truth of the matter is the cost of services is going down, not up.
In an industry governed by strict compliance and old-school handshakes, how do you build a predictable engine for growth? Today, we're joined by Charlie Van Derven, the architect behind Social Advisors. With over 2 decades of experience, Charlie has seen the digital landscape evolve from simple websites in '98 to the AI-driven automation of today. He's helped hundreds of financial advisors break away from the chicken dinner seminars of the past to build high-trust, high-tech brands that actually scale. We're diving into the 4-step business development process, why the fractional CMO is the future of the agency model.
Dude, managing a team was the worst. Found my, 75% of my time was dealing with HR. If I can say bullshit, I'll say HR bullshit. Which 1% or 2% of those people are showing up to the webinar. That's who our next prospect is.
Do you have any type of clients who is still sticking to the old school outreach methods, or not even kind of interested in the automations?
If you're still charging $8,000 or $10,000 for a website that doesn't have any kind of custom development on it, you're going to be lost in the dark.
What is the kind of toughest challenge or the bottleneck you have in your business? Welcome back to the next move with Venkat. Hey Charlie, welcome to the show.
Venkata, pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for the invite.
Amazing. It is really a pleasure having you on the podcast. So you are also hosting a podcast. So how is it being on the other side of?
So we did the podcast. We started it like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and we did like 52 episodes of it. And we went through some restructuring internally. And so that was one of the big heavy lifting projects that went away when we restructured. And I missed it, Venkata. I really missed it, And so we recently brought it back. I think we've got 6 or 7 new episodes recorded, and we've released 2 or 3 of those. I love doing it, man. My favorite part of the job is strategy, but just the ability to meet people who are doing different things. We interview exclusively our market, right? So we're talking to a lot of financial advisors, and then it's specifically advisors that work for big banks that have gone into an independent space. And so it's all about their breakaway journey, we call that, and what they can bring to a younger crop of advisors who want to do the same thing. So it's good. It's interesting, man. You get to meet some cool people like yourself.
God. Yeah, really amazing. It is same for me. I just started very recently, like 3 months ago. So
all right, man.
Even in this short period, I am meeting so many of amazing people.
Yeah,
from the digital marketing industry, and I'm meeting few people from production companies and all. So it is really amazing. Yeah. But I did like 20 episodes already, 20 or 22 episodes already.
That's great. So, you're flying.
Yeah, I'm just maintaining that momentum. The yearly momentum is really kind of awesome. We have all energy channelized. So I just want to utilize everything properly and channelizing everything.
Yep. I love it.
Got it. Amazing. Yeah. So let's take us back for like where it all started. So you're a kind of person started way before. You are in the industry for like more than 2 decades now. So what was your move for to start this Social Advisors?
Well, Social Advisors, I was working for other firms that served the same industries. I mean, a while ago, right? I hope I don't look my age, but in actually 1998, I hooked up with a company. I was living in Minnesota, hooked up with a company that was doing websites for the large financial firms like Morgan Stanley and UBS and, just some big names like that. And so I got my foray into the industry through that. And it was a great company, man. They had a great client list. There were 2 owners. They were always, swinging for the fences, so to speak. And when you do that, you tend to strike out a little bit. And they struck out one too many times. And so I think I was employee 14 at this company, and we built it to about 350 people. So I was close to the nucleus, and it wasn't going to survive, a couple of big decisions that they made. I went and worked for another firm. As part of financial services, of course, there's a legal compliance, right? So
Yeah.
A lawyer's got to look at everything an advisor says in a marketing capacity or in a written capacity. So firms started to pop up as social media and email marketing became, really prominent. Firms started to pop up that just would can their content, right? That would write content that tens of thousands of advisors would use. And I started working with one of those firms and realized there were advisors out there that didn't want to use the same stuff that everybody else was using. And so I really didn't know what social advisors was at the time, but I knew there was a need. And so my wife and I had a little savings and I said, baby, give me 2 months. If I can find some clients, we'll keep going. If not, I promise I'll get another job. And, lucky for me, I never had to get another job. And so that's 12 years ago. And it was literally, we were in a 3-bedroom house. It was literally clearing out the furniture out of the bedroom and moving a conference table in and, propping open my laptop and building a logo and naming the business and building a website and, doing those things. And at that time, it was all just content marketing for advisors.
Mm.
So that was kind of how I got to where I was, the first company, great company, enjoyed it very much. I was there 10 years. Second company, I thought I had a better solution. So outspawned social advisors and social media marketing for financial advisors. We've changed a lot over the years, but 12 years ago, that's how that all came to fruition. Me, myself, and my wife just, banging away, trying to get a dream off the ground. Yeah.
Amazing. Sounds really amazing.
Yeah, it was good, man.
Yeah.
It was scary.
At that point, I really agree with you in that. Yeah, at that point, I mean, I guess same kind of situation, what you said, like you took permission from your wife, give me 2 months. So yeah, I'm in the same kind of position. Like I quit my job. I'm in the same positions. I'm seeing myself in you maybe like after 15, 20 years.
Yeah,
I would be.
It makes you perform, right? I mean, you gotta.
Yeah.
You give away the 9 to 5, and man, you better make it work.
Yeah. True. Got it. Yeah, and you're working with the clients, the financial advisors. So which is really, as you said, like a lot of compliance involves into it, the industry itself. So what is your kind of strategy, you would say, to deal with these type of clients when it is coming to the delivering the digital marketing services?
Yeah, well, so compliance is a consideration, and I think obviously there's a lot of digital marketers out there, right? And there's all forms and shapes and sizes, and people running SaaS models and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of providers out there. One of the things I specifically like about financial services is that compliance piece. First off, it's not as scary as it sounds like it is. It's in some ways, it actually makes it easier to serve the industry because you've got to fit in a box, right? You've got to, in understanding what that box is, I think gives us a leg up, and it also creates a barrier to entry for marketers who don't know that industry at all. So it protects, there's a lot of digital marketers in financial services, but it protects the industry a little bit from people who just don't even understand who they're serving. Our services have evolved a lot over the years. Like I said, early days, our first few clients were advisors. The intent, because I had some history in the industry and I had a little brand built, the intent was always to stick with that industry. But because it was self-funded and it's not like we had a lot of money at the time, I took business wherever I could. We needed the revenue, right? So my neighbor who had a restaurant, hey, can you market for me? Oh, sure, I can do that. No, my buddy's got a bar, or we own a car dealership, and we've had a car wash over the as a client in the past, and a senior living place. That was early days of the business, and everybody was a little different, so it was much harder to service them because they had a very different structure. They had a very different audience. They had a very different offering, and so I would say probably year 3 or so, we were like, we can't scale this way. Right. So there's just too many different variables from client to client. So it was difficult to scale. And so we got really, really very niche on who we served. And we went, really all in on financial services. Today, 100% of our clients are out of the industry or touching the industry in some way. Yeah. So back then, Nkata, it was content, man. It was social media content, social media and email content. We evolved into some marketing automation, which brought to the table then, so a lot of CRM work as well. So, building sales funnels and running some LinkedIn automation to build an email list. Eventually, every good marketing strategy needs a conversion step, right? And so if the calls to action don't do that for you, we found that webinars and educational events were really good for conversion, but we layered that in, or, maybe not so ironically. It's the exact same strategy we were using to build our business, a little PR where we could get it, Um, top of funnel was really LinkedIn dominantly, nurture sequence with social and email content, and then conversion with events. And then more recently, we've evolved into offering a fractional CMO, a fractional chief marketing officer role. And so that's where we're growing the fastest, is within that, that fractional role, which I love because it's all strategy. Everybody's different. They've got different differentiators, different audiences, different messaging. Everybody's a little different. So it kind of keeps it exciting, makes strategy more important than just kind of rinse and repeat.
Got it. Yeah. So do you have any type of clients who is still sticking to the old school outreach methods, or, not even kind of interested in the automations or any type of these new technologies? And if you have anyone, like, how do you kind of approach them to, to take up these to level up their brands?
So I like to tell advisors that their business development hasn't changed, right? Their marketing and growth hasn't changed. So the average advisor, the majority of their growth comes directly from referral, right? And we're in a luxurious position now after 12 years that the majority of our growth comes from the same place, but that doesn't happen right away. When you look at old school methods for this industry, really it's cold calling. So there used to be a lot of cold calling. We don't see a whole lot of that anymore, though. There's some cowboys out there still doing it. Seminars, dinner seminars. And we do still see some dinner seminars, like a mailer to your mailbox, a nice 4-color mailer, and then, a chicken or a steak dinner at the local steakhouse, or, even the local hotel conference room or whatever. That still works for a number of advisors. It's very expensive, right? Although those mailers, you're blanketing thousands of households with mailers. You got to rent the room. You got to buy everybody a dinner. A lot of people show up just for the chicken or the steak, and then you hope they're qualified, right? So, but I know advisors that get clients out of seminars, pretty consistently for our efforts. And so that was traditional, right? The cold calling and the mailers and seminars. Business development really is 4 steps, right? You've got to understand who your ICP, your ideal client profile is, right? And with that, you've got to understand what your value is and what their needs are and where their problems are. And, your messaging has to resemble all that. So that's step 1. Step 2 is you've got to be able, with digital, you've got to be able to be speaking to a lot of people, right? So you got to build a large network of people. So step 2 is really building out that large network of people. LinkedIn makes it very easy for our clients, but people who are business to traditional consumer, LinkedIn may not be right for them, right? That might be meta ads or even cold email. I think there's a really great purpose for cold email in a lot of industries, financial services included. Step 3 is you got to nurture, especially in our industry, right? It's a high trust relationship. I'm turning my money over to somebody, hoping to do well with it. So we don't see a lot of, quick closes. Usually an advisor will know somebody for a year or 2 before they get an opportunity to do business with them. And so, and then step 3 is you got to be able to convert. Right. So, soft calls to action throughout. So you'll get some of that conversion. And then our best clients are running an educational event every month. And so, if they're talking to 5,000 business owners in their town, for example, because they do business with business owners, the webinar, not only an opportunity to transform their brand and create good content for the future, right? Good social content for the future, but also it's a good measuring tool. Like if we've got, 5,000 emails in our CRM, which 1% or 2% of those people are showing up to the webinar, and then out of that, so it's a self-selection tool also, right? Like who's showing up. That's who our next prospect is. Yeah,
got it. Yeah, this method, these workshops or the webinar method is really kind of amazing. Even I have attended few webinars, and the way of contacting the leads or getting the conversions is really kind of amazing. So if we talk about this financial sector, what is the typical type of conversion rates you tend to see for your clients?
Well, I'll tell you, it is it's dependent on the advisor to some degree. I sat through a webinar, kind of close to the industry, but it was college planning. Like, my kids are getting up to college age. So, we're looking at that major expense in our life coming in the next couple of years here. So I sat through a college planning webinar, and this dude killed it. And he was very good at his craft, right? So he really knew how to deliver, and he delivered a lot of value. And, you could tell just by the interaction on the chat that there were hundreds of people there. So he did a good job. His top of funnel was advertising, meta ads. I responded to an Instagram ad by him, and he he kept it exclusive, right? So you could only 10 people could buy from him. He sold his 10 seats, Venkata, in 90 seconds. There was $700 a seat. So that's $7,000 per webinar. He's doing 2 webinars a day. That's $14,000 a day that guy's generating with webinars. Now he's an extreme case, right? He's good at his webinar. He's really worked on his craft in that regard. He has a high need offering, right? People, parents like me who are thinking about sending. I got 2 kids. Some have 4, right? Thinking about paying college for 4 kids. So there's a high need there. That is he probably runs it 3 months out of the year because that's when, his topic is important to people. So that's an extreme case, but he killed it. He did a great job. Now, the average webinar that we run for a client, I would say when they get started, they're likely to have, say, 40 or 50 registrations. About 40% of those people are going to show up. And if they do well, they're going to schedule 2 or 3 meetings out of it, right? Now, is that person qualified? We hope we did a good job on the top of the funnel. Now, when we use LinkedIn for that top of funnel, we have to make some guesses. They can't tell you what a person's business is worth or how much money they make a year or how much is in their 401k or whatever, right? But we can make some guesses based on experience and based on their titles and positions and where they live and where they work and who they're connected to and those sort of things to do as good a job as LinkedIn will allow us to do on the front end. But yeah, every month they run a webinar, they're likely to book 1, 2, 3 meetings. And then we highly encourage a follow-up routine there as well. And more than a sales call, it's a feedback loop. What'd you think of the topic? Did you have any questions? Are there other topics we should talk about? Do you know other people we should interview for the webinar? And then that kind of paves the way to start that sales conversation, right? About, let's talk about your personal situation. So it allows you, that 15 minutes of feedback to warm up the rapport a little bit more before you jump into that conversation about them individually. So it works well. It's a good system. I think for a lot of advisors, the content side of it is table stakes. Like if they're not doing, 10 years ago, you were doing something special if you were, highly active. They're not today. I mean, there's 450,000 practicing financial advisors in the United States. 50% of those people are highly active with social media in one capacity or another, right? So you just have to be there. Now, you can do some things to set yourself apart, but it's really come to the point where that content marketing, if you're not doing it, you're not being seen at all.
Yeah, true. And in just elaboration to the webinar topic. So I believe even though like the ultimate goal is the conversion through webinars for any kind of business owner who is kind of using the webinars for his lead generation of the sales process. But what I believe is we should also provide the value in the webinar. So then only any kind of lead is coming through. So they'll feel like, okay, I'm finding the valuable content here so that I can kind of trust this guy to, proceed whatever the service he's offering kind of thing. So what do you say on this?
100%. With you better have value or entertainment in everything you put out, right? And the webinar should be a little bit of each, right? But your social content, like if you're just making BS posts for the sake of having content out there, it's going to go pretty quiet pretty quickly. If you're sending emails just for the sake of sending emails without providing value, you're going to get your open rate's going to drop, it's going to plummet, right? So you've got to continue to produce value. Couple things about webinars, especially given who we serve, there's a pretty extreme level of complexity in managing your money, right? Tax strategies, right? Trusts and wills. If you're a high earning executive, right? You've got, RSUs, restricted stock units, and you've got deferred compensation, and you've got, there's just so much going on, and the help of a professional is very important in that regard. Now, when you do a webinar, if you give value, but then you give it all away and you don't have a complexity to what it is you're delivering, you might hurt yourself a little bit, right? Yeah. As long as there's some complexity, people see the need for your service. Second thing I'll say is we really like to do joint webinars, right? So we talked about that 4-step business development process, right? That second step is building a large network. When I do a webinar with somebody, I'm marketing it to my network. They're marketing it to their network. If we can get 100 registrations, I just earned 50 new emails. More than that, they came out of a network that already trusted that other person. And so it speeds up the sales process because that trust transfers to me. When they're a guest on my webinar, I'm a guest on their webinar. There's a kind of a perceived endorsement there. So I agree with you. You got to add value. Doing it in a panel style helps get more people to the show, helps get you introduced to more people, helps you build immediate trust with more people.
Got it. Yeah, sounds really wonderful. And yeah, if we talk about the challenges, especially for your clients, a kind of toughest challenge or the bottleneck in this, current situation based on the automations, content creation, etc., etc.
Yep.
So what is the one major bottleneck you are seeing for a typical financial client?
They're inundated with offers and they don't know what to trust. I would say that's, so I know a lot of advisors that, there's lots of, SaaS companies and consultants and, there's kind of a lot of offerings. And so I'll see a lot of advisors that are spending money on this one thing and spending money on this other thing and spending money on this third thing, and they're not working in any unison whatsoever. Right. So they might be running cold email through a platform, and then they might be running, social media through another platform. So we're a reseller of Go High Level CRM, which for the price I love. It's certainly not a, institutional HubSpot subscription or anything, but it's a really great platform for, as an agency, what we're able to sell it for. Right. So $100 a month for most of our clients. And it's on par with the cost of, say, a MailChimp or a Constant Contact, but it's 10 times what those tools are. So that's one way that it's easy to bring everything together through technologies like Zapier. We can use that Go High Level to kind of bundle it all into one place so we can make some sense of all these different strategies. That's their challenge on the marketing side. Now on the messaging side, which, I guess is one and the same, creating urgency. Yeah. So there's a difficult, in this industry, they talk about money in motion. And what that means is, did you just retire? Or did you just get an inheritance? Or did you just change jobs? So there's these life events that'll create money in motion, and advisors want to find those moments in people's lives so that they know there's something of a windfall, right? They get paid when they manage money for people. But creating urgency is probably one of the greatest challenges that most advisors face. We talked about the college planning guy. I got urgency. My kid's going to college. I got to figure that out. I don't want to pay full price, right? So I've got some urgency, but finding a service that creates urgency in your buyer is one of their greatest struggles.
What is the kind of toughest challenge or the bottleneck you have in your business?
What's the toughest challenge? 12 months in, it's not, I think we've been through all of them. For me, dude, it was managing a team, right? Yeah. So there was a time pre-GPT, pre-AI, which created a lot of efficiencies in our business, of course. But there was a time where it was myself, my wife, and 11 employees, W-2 employees. Payrolls are not the same all over the world, right? And American payroll is expensive, right? So trying to grow a business with W-2 employees where we're writing all the time and managing a lot of clients. And I'm a big thinker guy, right? I'm a visionary, right? I'm not an implementer necessarily. I need that to complement what I do well. Dude, managing a team was the worst. If I can be so blunt, I went from, we got the small business and it's easy because it's nimble. And then as you grow, you've got to fill resources, right? And everybody has drama, whether it's in office or out of office. I found 75% of my time was dealing with HR. If I can say bullshit, I'll say HR bullshit. And that was really hard for me. And digital marketing has become a lot more efficient over the last 3 or 4 years. ChatGPT rolled out in the end of 22. Yeah. So we've all had an opportunity to use it for quite a while. Was it end of 22 or end of 23? Doesn't matter, whatever. But we've had I think it rolled out end of 22 and we started implementing it like January of 23. But it's created a lot of efficiencies. And so we went through a restructuring as a result of it. That meant cutting revenue. That meant cutting the team a little bit. It's, you can see now in the background, I'm working from home now. We used to have an office in downtown Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm so much happier now, dude. So my most difficult thing for me was running a business. I was running a team. I mean, that's kind of in the rear view, right? We've kind of come through that, and we've realized that, and we've gotten back to something that feels really good. I would say that the most challenging aspect going forward is the variety of tools available to us. Similar to what I said about advisors, right? There are so many tools available that there's an inundation of it. Whether it's seeing stuff on LinkedIn where I spend a lot of my time, or on Instagram where I spend a lot of my time, or or, my email inbox, because I'm one of those guys that opens the cold emails because I'm always curious of what the next company's doing or how we can become more efficient in what we do. But that's the hardest part for me, I think, is just really figuring out what the right stack is. We've got our stack. Is it the best stack? I'm sure it's not. It's good. We've evolved to what we have, and the next best tool is going to come out tomorrow. It's staying on top of trends, I think, because it moves so fast.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So before we wrap up the last but one section for us in the podcast, so what are your future goals and what is your next move? If we talk about, let's say, for example, 2026, what is your next move?
Yeah, the team's got to grow a little bit, right? We are a growing company, and so the team's got to grow, and that's always culturally you got to make sure that everybody's working well, and the personalities and the skill sets complement each other. So, there'll be focus on that in Q1 and Q2 of 26. Other things we're really looking at is, I talked about being a visionary and the big thinker, and I'm not an operator. Right. We've documented our processes, and, we've done a good job with that stuff, but we're kind of looking at bringing on, some operations help. Right. So I tend to work in the business a lot. I'd love to free myself of that. Right. So if we can get a good operator in place, they'll do a better job at it than I do even, so that's, those are two primary things. That fractional CMO role is where we're headed as a company, really, really bringing a lot of fulfillment in marketing, but really bringing the consultancy aspect to it. So, and of course, that's going to broaden what we do as a company and who we partner with to provide services. So I think that just amplifies how important the operations role is.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. I really wish you all the best for the next move in your business.
Thank you, Venkat. If it's not evolving and changing, right, it just kind of tends to get stale. Yeah, it's good times, man. It's back to having fun. I'm no longer running a huge team, and it's back to being able to work really directly with clients. Maybe that's something I miss, right? Is as that team grew, we had like account executives in place. And as that team scaled back, I work directly with our key clients, and it's fun for me, right? So I get to talk to these people at least once a month, some of them twice a month, and all those conversations are strategy conversations, which I love doing.
Got it. Amazing. And before we finish the episode, so if you could share one suggestion for the financial advisors out there and one suggestion for the marketers, what it would be?
Interesting. One solution for the financial advisors, one solution for the marketers. Are you looking for a specific technology?
You can share some kind of strategy or the suggestion, a kind of,
So, as AI, financial services is because of its compliance, it moves slowly. So where, you and I have been using note takers in our meetings for a long time, and certainly advisors have too. There are a couple of technologies that are available to advisors now that integrate with their CRM, do their note taking, and they've got to be compliant, right? So there's got to be a lot of privacy because there's a lot of personal information being exchanged in those meetings, but integrate with their CRM, take their notes, type up the follow-up email, and those follow-up emails are pretty good. They can scan their database, see if it's a prospect database, see who's likeliest to be their next client. It can scan their clients and figure out who doesn't have certain products. And if I were an advisor, I'd take a look at Jump AI and Zox AI. Both are their competitors in the same space. Great technologies. And when those advisors don't have to take handwritten notes and then type up an email afterwards, which can take 20, 25 minutes, right? For every call they have, they're going to shave 15 minutes off of their follow-up. So those are a couple technologies. The other thing I would say for the advisor audience is referrals are not predictable. You've got to create a predictable way to flow your pipeline. There's got to be a way, and we can help with that. There's lots of others that can help with it. But if you don't have a predictable way to keep your pipeline topped off, you are headed for a lull, right? So that would be my couple of recommendations for advisors. For marketers, business has changed dramatically in 3 years. Agencies that are doing business the way they did it in 2020 will not survive. Truth of the matter is the cost of services is going down, not up. That's based on the amount of competition that's out there. That's based on the tools that created the efficiencies in what we do. If you're still charging $8,000 or $10,000 for a website that doesn't have any kind of custom development on it, you're going to be lost in the dark pretty quick, right? So, that means leaning into AI. That means leaning into labor from other areas. If you live in a high payroll area, yeah, you got to evolve or die. This is, this industry is moving so fast that, so that's my biggest challenge, is staying on top of trends, always looking for ways to be more efficient with what we do.
That was really, really amazing. Yeah, I completely agree with you what you said, like the highly pricing and, for the same kind of services which we used to offer earlier, it is not going to really work.
Yep.
Obviously.
No. I mean, if you don't need a complex website, you can go build a website on AI for $99 right now. If you don't need complexity, right? And that's the ones we build. We're still doing it. Still doing WordPress sites and we're developing it, right? We've got developers working on it, but we tend to do a little more complexity and a little more customization than what's available right now with AI that I know of anyway. And probably tomorrow I could be wrong, but yeah, it's light speed, which keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, finally, like if anyone wants to find you out, where they can find you online.
Yeah. So I think I'm the only Charlie Van Derven on the planet. I think so. I'm an easy guy to find, but our website is social-advisors.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn a lot during the day. So Charlie Van Derven, last name is VanDerven. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there.
Got it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. It was really amazing conversation, and I feel like it was really so much of a productive conversation, I would say. Yeah, at least for me, I got to learn so many amazing insights from you.
Dude, that's great. You don't know what you know, right? I've been at it a long time, so I don't know what kind of knowledge is packed into this brain, but if I got something I can share, I love to do that, man.
So based on what I can see is, so to extract all the knowledge from you, obviously the 30 minutes or the 40 minutes is not really enough for us. We can explore a few more topics and a few more educational content in the future.
Definitely. I love that, man. I love that. Love to work with you again.
Thank you very much, Charlie. And anyone who is interested in this type of content, please share it with the same one. So check out Charlie's website, thesocialadvisors.com, and Charlie's LinkedIn profile. You'll find really amazing content around digital marketing and the automation. So this is Next Move with Venkat. See you on the next episode. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.